Welcome back, everyone. With the review of Final Fantasy XII finally over, it's back to the regular amalgamation of topics for this channel. And the first thing I wanted to do is take some time to talk about Dragon Ball, since it's been wrapping back up into production for the past few years. This editorial won't really have much to do with games directly, so I suppose be aware of that. This will instead be specifically about Dragon Ball and where I think the series is going. The ideas here can still be applied to games, of course, with series like Kingdom Hearts being rather great analogs to the issues I'll be discussing here. In the background is just going to be some random Dragon Arena footage from Budokai 3. I get destroyed a lot, so cut me some slack because I haven't played the game since I reviewed it last year. First things first, I love Dragon Ball Z. It's not my favorite anime, but it certainly is the one that I have the most nostalgia for, or at least I would have nostalgia for it if I had ever left it in the past. Not only have I watched through the original series several times, as well as GT, but I've also seen DBZ Kai all the way through at least 4 or 5 times. And I've also played most of the games that have been released in the West. That being said, I also fully understand that Dragon Ball is filled to the brim with issues. Dragon Ball Z and Beyond is not exactly a graceful series, and keep in mind, by the way, that I'm not including the original Dragon Ball in any of this. I feel it's very much its own thing, and haven't watched it enough times to remember whether it suffers from similar problems. Despite the issues though, I think Dragon Ball as a series offers something truly spectacular hidden deep inside. It's something we saw rather bright glimpses of in Z. It's something that I think they had the chance to capture with GT. It's something that I think they have the chance to capture in Super. And it's something that I can almost guarantee they'll avoid like the plague. This magic the series once had slowly faded away to be replaced with one-note writing and fan expectations. The series diluted itself until there was nothing tangible left. Keep in mind, I won't watch Super until there's at least a full season dubbed in English, so the most I know about it is that it has some rather rushed animation and that it's going in some rather ridiculous directions. I know the main plot idea, but not too many details dealing with the specific episodes, characters, or events. I've had this editorial in mind since before I even began this channel, so while people who've watched the mini episodes of Super that have already been released will know more about the quality the series is actually at right now, I think my point here is still relevant. When I heard about Dragon Ball Super, I felt they finally had the chance to fix the major issues the series had struggled with since the end of the Cell Saga. I was especially confident after hearing Toriyama talk about how he was approaching the series and the recent movies, Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F. Unfortunately, he's already rescinded a lot of the promises he made, and has already started to approach the same old writing style that caused the series to fade into mediocrity in the first place. So in order to detail how I think they could have fixed the problems, I should first explain what I think the core issues are. First issue, the goddamn transformations. Now I like to see transformations as much as the next guy. The initial Super Saiyan transformation, Gohan's transformation into Super Saiyan 2, and even the first transformation into Super Saiyan 4 are awesome. The first time Goku transformed will always be ingrained in my mind as the most impressive moment I've personally ever felt in an animation. But eventually it really started to get ridiculous. Maybe I'll get into it sometime, but I feel there were only ever 2 real Saiyan transformations in the series, outside of the Ozaru. Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 4. All the rest were honestly just powered up or refined versions of the original Super Saiyan. And since Super Saiyan 4 isn't really canon anymore, there's really only one Super Saiyan transformation as far as I'm concerned. So it was okay with me that they added just one more in Battle of Gods, that being the Super Saiyan God transformation. It gave the series an easy breath of fresh air, and the design was cool. Toriyama originally stated that he was tired of transformations as well, and that he didn't want to focus on them anymore. To this end, I was ecstatic. It told me that we'd possibly start getting actual character development again. I'll talk more about that a bit later, but the thought of the potential depth really excited me. And this was especially true when I saw the ending of Battle of Gods, which, spoiler alert, this is your one chance to leave if you haven't seen it yet. The ending showed that Goku wasn't stronger than Beerus, and definitely wasn't as strong as Vice. Not only were these characters interesting and dynamic rather than simply being mustache-twirling villains, but the damn movie ended with Goku losing to them. That's awesome. Then, Resurrection of F came along. Look, I get the idea. I love Frieza too. To see him fight on the same level as Goku again is awesome, but the premise is weak. His golden transformation is ugly as sin, and it doesn't go anywhere. Plus, we don't need Frieza anymore. The series needs to stop living in the past. Resurrection of F is literally just an hour-long clickbait-style movie. It's fun to watch for the action, great animation, and nostalgic fan service, but I don't know why it's being included in Dragon Ball Super as a canon storyline. Oh yeah, in case some of you didn't know, Super goes through both movies before moving on to original content. Battle of Gods makes sense as part of Super, since it actually develops some plot points and gives the series new direction. Resurrection of F doesn't really. It's realistically about as relevant as the Garlic Jr. episodes in between the Frieza and Cell sagas. But there's something much, much worse than shiny gold chrome Frieza in that movie. That thing is... I can't even say it. It's so ridiculous. That thing is Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. That is stupid. It's insane how stupid that is. Everyone knows how stupid that is. Since its announcement, people have been debating a better name all over the internet. Some people are going with Super Saiyan Blue because that's what the subtitles say. But with the previous transformation already being called Super Saiyan God, there aren't too many places they could have gone. It would have been really simple had they thought about it just a bit. Call the original transformation the Saiyan God, and the second one Super Saiyan God. After all, Goku's hair is normal in the first transformation and spiked up in the second one. Regardless, it's a stupid transformation that only exists for the sake of existing. And it's also ugly. Not because the blue doesn't look great, it does, but it doesn't make any sense and feels like some sort of fan art created by a 10-year-old. I would know. Here's a crappy concept I made back in the day of Super Saiyan 5 Goku. It's terrible, just like this design. Why does he go from this really nice red to a bright-ass blue? It doesn't make any sense, and it seems like they were just throwing colors out there as if they were afraid fans would reject anything more subtle. It doesn't show any nuance design-wise, since all it does is essentially make him a blue-haired Super Saiyan. Super Saiyan was a great transformation design. Super Saiyan 4 was just as strong of a design. Super Saiyan 2, 3, and God were passable. Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan is honestly a terrible design, in large part because it's so lazy, and it contrasts the other transformations far too much and far too quickly. What's next? Green hair? What's worse is that the transformation completely goes against what Toriyama originally said he was going to do. And it's not like the old movies either, where they aren't considered canon. This is something that shows up in Super, meaning it's a completely canon transformation. What's the use of half of these transformations if we're just going to get a new one every 2 weeks? Second issue, Goku. Goku is my favorite hero of all time. He just is. But I think it's time he retired. I absolutely loved that they were willing to kill him off at the end of the Cell Saga. I was excited to see Gohan, who was super cool at that point in the series, take over from there. He'd been built up almost like this background hero that would eventually take over throughout the whole series. And then the Buu Saga rolls around, which is just as poorly written as GT by the way, and he's relegated to the background again. Goku didn't want to come back to life, but suddenly he's back, and practically every other episode in the Buu Saga had a new transformation. I could also do an entirely separate editorial about the issues with the Buu Saga as well. It's that bad. Anyway, I'm tired of knowing that Goku will constantly solve all the problems of the universe. There's no surprise with Goku as the lead. He either needs to be replaced with someone else or he needs a different role. Which brings me to my next problem. Third issue, one-note characters. Not only is Goku a one-note hero at this point, but so is everyone else. By the start of the Buu Saga, Gohan had been relegated to being a half-bumbling fool. Krillin and the other backup characters do practically nothing at all. Piccolo is just a stoic grump. Trunks and Goten do nothing but get into trouble and make things worse most of the time. And Vegeta. I know a lot of people love Vegeta, and I want to like him too, but he doesn't win a single major fight in the entire series. Versus Goku, Vegeta loses. Ginyu Force, Vegeta loses. Jace, he kinda wins, but only after he loses. Frieza, Vegeta loses. 17 and 18, Vegeta loses. Cell, Vegeta loses. Boo, Vegeta loses. But through nearly all of this, he's still just as smug of an asshole. His struggle doesn't mean much if he doesn't make any real progress. Realistically, he only ever beats characters that Goku already could, and as Majin Vegeta, he only wins the fight against Goku because he tricks him. I thought the point of Vegeta's arc was to show that he needs to find his own way to surpass Goku, but he never does. Sure, that's partially a problem with Goku's character, but when Vegeta can't even do anything for himself, why should I care about his struggle? He never really progresses in any major ways, and as such he's still behind Goku every step of the way, even when he does have slight flashes of extra power. He never really finds his own strength. So him being so egotistical comes off as an annoying trope, not means to character development. He, and the rest of the characters, start off so great, and do get development, but that slowly gets washed away in favor of making them cardboard cutouts. And no, single scenes like him dancing to distract Beerus during Battle of Gods is not real character development. It's a step toward character development. None of the characters have any depth anymore. They've all turned into tropes, shells of their former complexity. In writing these characters so much, they've accidentally been distilled into stereotypes. It's not like this only happens here. Look at any long-running series like Rugrats, or SpongeBob, or The Simpsons, or whatever, and you realize that many of them do the same thing. The writers get caught up in fan expectations, missing chances for depth and expansion of the characters, and sometimes even reversing depth that the characters originally found. They get so caught up in what would be canon and in character that they don't realize they're no longer writing these people as real human beings. Fourth issue, lack of risk. There's really no risk of any of the characters being lost anymore, unless they clearly become completely expendable. Everyone has come back, including freaking villains. You know why Chaozu's death meant something? Because he'd been built up as something important, and the idea was that he might be permanently dead if they lose. Same with Yamcha, same with Tien, same with Krillin, same with Goku. Even characters like Dende had been given importance before they died. He was the freaking white mage, man. But along the way, things got more and more tame. Nobody had to worry about truly dying, they only had to worry about temporarily dying. They didn't even have to worry about permanent dismemberment or anything. They'd just die, then be resurrected in full health. I'm surprised that didn't become a joke, where somebody would lose a finger, they'd be blasted away, and then wished back. If you know what's going to happen next, and you know the characters can't lose anything forever, then why worry? The stakes are superficial at that point. Fifth issue, the repetitive structure. This plays into all of the rest of it and is the biggest issue. The whole of DBZ has become a formula. Take a Goku, add a Crybaby Vegeta, and a bunch of less powerful cannon fodder characters. Throw in a villain with at least 3 forms who gets slowly more psychotic. Add half a dozen transformations, some false deaths, and cook until crispy on the outside. Everything in Dragon Ball can now be seen from a mile away. You know, GT actually started out great. I know a lot of people prefer the latter half for some reason, but honestly, the first half was much more well written. It took a risk by focusing on adventuring, more like the original Dragon Ball. That meant that they couldn't fill it with dozens of cliches because the characters were always on the move. They always had to have something new to find. It once again regained the lighthearted nature of Dragon Ball, but still had great action sequences and serious moments. The characters fought interesting enemies, in interesting places, under interesting circumstances. Then Baby came around and reverted everything back to the formula. It's just no fun anymore, even if some of the character designs were great. And unfortunately, from what I've seen, I'm all but completely sure that Super will be the same way. It won't be interesting or engaging, it's going to be formulaic and cliché. I know that Super eventually starts to focus on the gang mingling with different universes, a plot point set up in Battle of Gods. Still, I can't help but to feel that it'll be just like GT, in that these travels will serve no other purpose but to set up a primary villain that they can spend 70 episodes fighting. So then what would I do to change things up? I can hear you thinking, if you're so smart, what would you do to make it interesting? As if you sound like some jolly green giant. Lucky for you, I have an answer. I'll warn you though, if you go any further, it might result in you finding Super's eventual direction supremely underwhelming. Or you could think I'm an idiot. Depends on how Super goes, I suppose. Either way, here's my proposed plot for Super. So this idea obviously goes by the same rules that Super does. So this concept does include Battle of Gods, because again, I think it's a great starting point for an interesting and refreshing plotline. It introduces the potential universe that can be explored, allowing for new enemies, and can introduce battles on a grander scale due to the power of Super Saiyan God. It doesn't include Resurrection of F, both because the movie wasn't really revealed when I came up with this idea, and because I don't think it adds much of anything. So our story technically starts as soon as Goku becomes a Super Saiyan God. In the movie, Pan is yet to be born, and she's used as the final pure-hearted Saiyan in the ritual, so that Goku can attain the God transformation ability. In my idea though, being unborn during the ritual changes Pan, unbeknownst to everyone else. Pan is eventually born, and all seems normal for a while. It's also important to note real quick that this is not to be thought of like Pan from GT. This would be a complete reimagining of the character, with no intentional remnants of the previous character existing. Anyway, as she grows older, Pan's hair naturally starts to change from black to a bright rose-red color. She also starts to grow a Saiyan tail, despite the fact that she's only a quarter Saiyan. Soon enough, Pan also begins to have uncontrollable power bursts that usually end in the destruction and injury of anything and anyone nearby. By the time she's 22 years old, she's long since left home in order to prevent any further damage. She lives atop Dende's tower and trains with Goku and Oob quite often in an attempt to maybe learn to control her power, but it's to no avail. Goku begins to notice that it's becoming harder and harder for him to keep up with her. It's at this time that Beerus wakes back up and makes his way to Earth for what is now the 4th time over the last quarter century. The food is great and all, but he's once again looking for a challenge. He threatens to destroy the planet if somebody doesn't step up and fight him. Goku challenges him but is quickly bested. Beerus isn't satisfied by their bout, leaving Oob and Pan as the only ones left who even remotely have a chance. But before Oob can even attempt to fight, Pan quickly jumps in. She holds her own easily, leaving everyone, Beerus included, absolutely in shock. Unlike the Ascended Saiyan form used by the likes of Trunks against Perfect Cell, Pan doesn't suffer from extreme muscle mass slowing her down, nor excess wasted energy, but she seems to exhibit the infinite power ceiling that Goku realized he couldn't have achieved by himself. Beerus has no choice but to use all of his skills and strength, but all it takes is a bit of prodding for Pan to summon enough power to defeat him without even breaking a sweat. Unfortunately for Beerus, she ends up going too far, leaving nothing left of him when the fight is over. Weiss decides it's his turn to try his hand at fighting Pan, though rather than avenging Beerus, he's actually testing her to see if she's worthy of being the new Goddess of Destruction. The two seem to be evenly matched, though no one is sure whether either of them is using their full strength. He offers the job to Pan, warning that they have to have a god or goddess of destruction, otherwise the universe will be thrown into a sort of chaotic limbo before long. In what seems like a last-ditch effort to save Pan from this fate, Goku offers himself as a candidate for the position. Weiss thinks on it before accepting and christening Goku as the new god of destruction. Weiss completes a short ritual and then explains that Goku now has the infinite potential that he's always wanted. Goku then turns to Pan and tells her that she's going to have to take him down eventually, as he cannot bear the burden of these powers forever. Being who he is, Goku simply can't stomach the knowledge that his duty is to kill billions of innocent people. This sets up our initial end goal, while also giving Goku an interesting new position in the story, and allowing the audience and Goku himself to reflect on the atrocities he's now expected to commit. In a way, Goku has now become the villain he's always fought against. Knowing her mission, Pan commissions the Briefs family to create a pod that can take her to other universes. She knows thanks to Goku and Beerus that there are supposedly many warriors much stronger than any of them outside of their own universe. She knows Goku will be training constantly now that he can reach any power limit, so she has no choice but to do the same. The series then focuses on Pan's adventures in the other universes for a while, while being accompanied by Oob. And maybe Tarble, Vegeta's younger brother from the Son Goku and His Friends Return OVA. I kinda like Tarble. Regardless, it will occasionally also focus on Goku's training and duties as the God of Destruction, and how he's coping with the situation. Eventually, everything comes to a head decades later when Pan and Goku finally face each other. Pan exhibits the slow aging that a full-blooded Saiyan does, by the way, as another side effect of the ritual that gave her her powers. The most explosive battle any universe has ever seen ensues, and goes on for what seems like forever. But eventually, Pan wins, releasing Goku from his duties as God of Destruction. I would have her kill Goku personally, though I know a lot of people will probably be upset by that. Regardless, he's no longer the God of Destruction, and there's only one last thing for Pan to decide. Should she take up the throne and bear the burden herself? Or should she risk the destruction of the universe by refusing the position and trying to see if there's a way to balance everything without a God of Destruction? Obviously, I would assume the series would continue with her trying to figure out how to go about balancing the universe without the required God of Destruction. That would set up the second and final arc. I might even bring the Dragon Balls into it. During Pan's cross-universe travels, I'd reveal that the power of the Dragon Balls exists in every universe, in one form or another. This mysterious power inside the Dragon Balls and other objects actually balances out the God of Destruction's powers, and the destruction of the Dragon Balls would be the final stop for both Super and the official Dragon Ball canon as well. No Dragon Balls, no Dragon Ball. Obviously, it wouldn't be as simple as just destroying the balls. It could pull a GT and have some ultimate Shenron character appear to defend them, or maybe Vice could defend them. Happy ending, blah blah blah. Now there's a quick few things to note. Being only quarter Saiyan, Pan cannot transform. She's technically not even considered a Super Saiyan God, as shown by her eyes not being red like her hair, as well as the fact that her aura when powered up is the normal human blue rather than resembling a blazing fire. Her genetic makeup was changed when she was used in the ritual that first allowed Goku to reach said transformation, giving her the powers of a Super Saiyan God, but not really the body to properly control it. That's why she has the uncontrollable outbursts and such. Eventually, she gets over that issue, but it does cause her some problems throughout the series. The armor she's wearing is of Capsule Corp design, and is based off of the Saiyan/Arcosian armor design from way back in the day. And while it offers the same amount of protection, scientific advancements led to it being virtually weightless. The wearer is therefore more agile, and finds it easier to move. If you look at this, it definitely is a step in a direction that solves most of the issues I outlined above. And the ones it doesn't solve, it still allows for the potential of them to be solved, as long as the writers didn't screw up and start to get lazy. It doesn't have an overemphasis on transformation. That doesn't mean there can't be any, but they wouldn't be the simple, traditional power-up transformations, and they wouldn't be the get-out-of-jail-free card to move the plot along, or bring about false tension at a constant rate. Kaioken was interesting because it tore up the body of the user. Cell's transformations were interesting because they required something more than just powering up. The initial Super Saiyan transformation was great because it was a legend before it became a reality. When transformations are used, in this idea, they'd be used in a responsible manner, with interesting context involved. This would also help cut down on filler, by the way, since you wouldn't run into enemies like Frieza, who you know early on has like 3 other forms, but you still have to wait 40 episodes before the battle actually gets serious. It only worked then because Frieza was established really quickly as the most powerful thing in the universe, and Frieza established the transformations really early as well. Plus, such transformations were still new and exciting. That same idea could maybe work once here for some other enemy in a different universe, but the series would do well to not overly rely on that idea. It also means you won't see Pan wasting time battling enemies in weaker transformations like Goku constantly did. She doesn't have weaker transformations, and she wouldn't be the kind of character to do that anyway. She'd only hold back against enemies she was trying to outsmart, or against people she's sparring against. Villains get no pity from her. She is not Goku. Which also means this idea gives Goku a supporting role and doesn't replace him with another Goku. In fact, it also kind of turns him into a villain without completely defacing his character. He's a reluctant villain, and it maintains/supports his regular characteristics while subverting your expectations of his role. He's the boss from Metal Gear Solid 3, if you will, who in many ways is tortured by the things they have to do. It makes his character more interesting and shows Goku to us from a perspective we haven't seen before. Given that Pan isn't the Pan from GT, nor is Oob, they're both fresh faces that require depth. The series therefore can't rely on previously established characteristics and rely on them as generic tropes. The characters will have to be well written or they'll fail because they have no backlog to stand on. While poor writing still could lead to them feeling one note, they have the chance to be more than that, much easier than the existing cast, since they don't carry 20 plus years of baggage behind them. They can be whatever the writers want them to be. This idea also sets up risk right up front. There's the potential idea that Pan could make some major mistakes due to inexperience, greed, ego, hatred, or other characteristics. There's the looming knowledge that she'll eventually have to take down Goku. And there's the idea that doing so without replacing him might doom the universe. This forces you to question where the story might go, rather than knowing that it'll all get fixed. The Frieza and Cell Saga set up scenarios where you expected real losses. Boo and GT did the opposite, removing tension and shining a light on what content was actually just useless filler. And finally, this opens itself up to a much less rigid structure. Literally anything can be found in these other universes, and not everything has to be a mustache-twirling villain either. Pan can fight smaller enemies, larger enemies, maybe she could die in another universe, which would theoretically take her to a different afterlife. The possibilities are endless, since there's no requirement for the enemies to be grounded in the original universe. She's training and seeking answers. No overarching traditional saga villains are required, though they could still exist. I know this is a risk, and I know plenty of people are probably already raging about my idea. Things like moving past characters like Vegeta and the rest of the cast, implying that Pan kills Goku, having Pan as the main character simply because she existed in GT. These are all things that can really easily upset a lot of people. But the reality is we need to get rid of these expectations that are actually dragging the series down. This to me is a great direction for the series. Most of the DBZ fanbase is now comprised of adults. As adults, most of us want deeper, more mature, more complex characters and themes. In reality, that's what attached a lot of us to DBZ in the beginning. I didn't know what anime was when I first watched Dragon Ball Z all those years ago, but I loved how it included themes that weren't present in Western cartoons. Characters had real motives, the story had an arc and continued from episode to episode. People freaking died, and for a while, the stakes were high. It was serious, but it still had a lighthearted side. But it has since become a series of expectational baggage. Again, people will complain about things in my idea like the fact that Pan could kill Goku, but it's not like he hasn't died plenty of times before. What matters the most now in Dragon Ball as it is checking boxes, not creating something interesting or beautiful. I think an idea like the one that I've presented here has the potential to make things right. I hope that Super is brave enough to subvert fan expectations, but I'm fully aware that it probably won't do anything risky or interesting. What do you guys think? Is this a great idea? A terrible idea? What would you make Super about? Are you excited for it as it is? Have you been watching it? Give your thoughts in the comments below, though try to keep major spoilers for Super at a minimum. If you liked this video, I would greatly appreciate a like, and if you liked it enough to subscribe, please do. I've already got plenty of other content on this channel, including a review of Budokai 3 if you find that interesting. and you can stay generally confident that I will upload a new video every 2 weeks. Have a great week, everyone.